in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It is, isn't it? Hello. We're back. Live and national. On the heels of an epic conversation that I had with President Trump, the President of the United States. Talked to him a couple of times yesterday, on and off air. And, as usual, totally accessible, totally open, candid. Can't tell you everything, of course, and you can kind of tell when he's not telling you everything. He'll even, hey, I don't want to talk about that, or I can't talk about that, or I don't want to say yet, that kind of thing, which I totally respect. So a lot of balls in the air right now, but when I talk to him, I get a sense of equilibrium. And I know that's some other people. What are you talking about? No, that's what I'm talking about. There was a banker on television today, kind of having a really good moment, very, very indignant. It was like a wake up and smell the coffee moment where he realized he's been lied to all of his life by the media. And for him, it was the Charlottesville hoax, right? I don't know what it was for you when you kind of woke up the first time you saw the media lying out loud or getting something so fundamentally wrong that you realize, why the hell would I ever trust these people? For me, that moment happened in 1989, actually, watching TV, and this big reporter named Jack Germond, who I liked, wrote for the Baltimore Sun, but he was a little bit arrogant, and he pretended to know things he didn't know and he couldn't know. And he was talking about the campaign of Rudy Giuliani for mayor, and I had just worked on that campaign. And he was saying things that weren't true. And like, oh my God, a man on television doesn't know what he's talking about. How can that be? How can it be otherwise? How can it be otherwise? That's a better question. All right. So here it is, in its entirety, my full conversation with President Trump. And we are proud to welcome the President of the United States, 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I feel good. The country is doing really well. We're attacking Iran right now as we speak, and they deserve it because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon that we can tell you with great certainty. But we're doing very well. The country is doing phenomenally well, actually.
I would like to talk to you a little bit about Lindsey Graham. We've heard a lot of your comments. You lost a big friend. I saw him in Ukraine on his way back, and we all saw the video. He didn't look so hot. I'm told by those who know him, maybe he looked a little off. He was tired. Look, the Russians have a habit of poisoning people they don't like. And Lindsey Graham once called for Putin to be, taken out. You have any suspicions or worries? Do you think we know the whole story about his death?
Well, I think we do. We've had great doctors, and they talked about, a certain part of his body literally blew up. And that's a condition I believe his father had also. His father died very, very young from heart complications, and that's what Lindsey had. And it's something that's, number one, is very tough to see. And even if you see it, it's hard to fix, very hard to fix. And, he had a problem with arteries, and I thought he was like a 70% blockage. I said, Lindsey, you're going to have to go and take care of that. But this was not that problem. This was a different problem that wasn't really related. So he called me, and I said, how you doing? He just got back from Ukraine. He was a worker. I tell you, he was always someplace. And he loved it, though. He really loved it. He was good. He was really a great politician, actually. But he just got back, and I said, how you doing? And he said, well, I'm doing good, but I'm tired. And within, a short period of time after that call, he was gone. Amazing, actually. But he was, I don't think, just to answer the conspiracy theory, I don't know. I'd love to say yes, but I think he had some problems, and very, very difficult. And his father died just about at the same age from... I'm a believer in the racehorse theory. If you have problems, you have problems. And he had some problems that were a little bit deep-seated and not easy to find.
Well, you made friends. You were once enemies. You made friends. It's kind of inspiring, actually. I like how you do that. Let me ask you about the successor. His sister looks like she's interim, Would you see yourself endorsing for the next round? I know you liked Pamela Evitt, the lieutenant governor, when she was running for governor. I don't think she's running for the seat herself, Ms. Nardone. You have any thoughts about what happens after this?
Well, yeah, the sister is going to be interim, and she's a terrific person. Lindsay loved her. They had a great relationship. They got along really well, and I noticed she was with him a lot, and she's a very she's a terrific person, and I thought it was a great idea. The governor called me, told me about it. I thought it was a great idea, and that's only interim, though. That's for a short period of time. That's during prior to the election. But you have some people there. I think Russell Fry, a young congressman, is outstanding, and that could happen. I could see that happening. I think he's a very, very talented person. He took the place of somebody that was. He's doing much better than the person that preceded him. He's been very popular in the state. So I think a name like Russell Fry is somebody you can watch out for, and there are probably some others. I believe the sister is there only on an interim basis, however.
You mentioned we're pounding Iran hard right now. You also talked about Guardian of the Gulf or Guardian of the Middle East, a new role for the United States. Two things. Who controls the strait right now? Is it ours? Is it theirs? Is it neutral? And
we do.
How would this Yeah.
We control it. They can make trouble. They can do things that are not nice, but we control it. We've knocked out most of their radar, a lot of their ammunition, a lot of their weapon launchers. They have the missile launchers. We've knocked out drones. We've knocked out missiles, and we control it. And we're going to keep doing it. And we're putting our blockade. The blockade was a tremendous success. It was there for 2 months, and nobody got through. We're putting that there. We're going to let everyone get through, except if you're doing business with Iran.
The Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, I know you guys go way back. It's been rocky at times. Is he still supporting the approach? I imagine he's kind of happy about this. Israel has called for elections in October this year. Do you support Prime Minister Netanyahu for re-election? Is that something you would do?
Well, we've actually had a good relationship. Look, if it wasn't for, let's say, the B-2 bombers hitting our B-2 bombers, if we didn't blow up their nuclear site where they were making essentially nuclear weapons, they were very far along. Within 2 weeks to 4 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon, and there would have been no Israel, and there probably wouldn't have been any of the other countries also. They were all under siege, and you saw that because when the war started, and you could call it what you want, you can call it a military operation or anything else, but I call it a denuclearization of Iran, because that's what it is. They can't have a nuclear weapon. But when the war started, they went after these 5 countries. I think it was a very big tactical mistake, but they went after the 5 countries, and, people were shocked. So I think if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have tried wiping them out and definitely wiping out Israel.
Senator Graham, it's reported that a big priority for him was getting Saudi Arabia in on the Abraham Accords. Yeah. Is that doable right now?
Oh, I think so, because they were all afraid of Iran, and they're much less afraid because they've been really neutered. They really have been. Their power's been largely taken away. Now they have some left, but it's been largely. As an example, their military, they had 159 ships. 159 ships are under the sea. They had 200 airplanes. Their airplanes are all gone. Their radar is gone. Their anti-aircraft is gone. Their weapon-making capability is largely gone. It's done about 84%. And, it's largely gone. So they're a much different country than they were 4 months ago. In 4 months, we've brought them back to the Stone Ages to a large extent. Now, with that being said, they've got some missiles and they've got a little capability, but they've been largely brought back into a different period of time. And, yeah, I think that the other ones probably would be able to handle Iran right now. But Iran was the bully of the Middle East, Greg. It was the bully of the Middle East, and they weren't going to be bullying me. The other presidents, this has been going on even the SS Cole, this has been going on for 47 years. If you remember the SS Cole, they were responsible for that. They were responsible for the killing of many of our soldiers with, they had the roadside bomb. That was their choice. That was their weapon of choice. They had Soleimani. And Soleimani, who I killed in my first term, Soleimani was a brilliant, he's a sort of a mad genius. He was a very, very smart general, but violent and terrible. And what happened is we took him out. And we also took the head of the Iraq ISIS contingent out simultaneously. But we took them out, and it made a tremendous difference. I think Iran would have been maybe a lot stronger today had he lived, but he didn't live.
Well, they want to take you out, as you know, and some of us suspect that they had a role in Butler, a suspect. Somebody was arrested on it, I believe convicted right around there, an Iranian who was out to get you. Have you learned anything significant about the shooter Crooks, say, it's 2 years ago today, Butler, but in the last couple of months, about Crooks and the phone and anything about that guy? It's just so bizarre.
Well, we watch it, and I watch it all the time, and he shouldn't have been where he was. He should have been in no location, frankly, but that was the mistake they made. The Secret Service made that mistake, and they've done a lot of things right. They've done almost everything right, but that was bad leaving him up there in that area. That was an open area, should have been covered. The fact is that Crooks was a very disturbed young man, a very nutty man. He's smart academically, by the way, but very, very disturbed. And he paid the price. I will say, with Secret Service, we had an anti-sniper, basically someone who shoots the snipers. And nice world we're living in, right? But he had he was given 4.6 seconds. Within 4.6 seconds, he hit the sniper right between the eyes. I mean, it was amazing, actually. And he was close to 400 yards away and given no chance because, frankly, we didn't know he was up there. And that was the other thing. They should have had better communication with the local police. So there were a lot of things, but in the end, I was really blessed by God because I had made that little turn, which was, really not so little. It was exactly a 90 degree. If it wasn't exact, the whole thing is a miracle. It's really a miracle. It's amazing. But the Secret Service did a very good job other than, and it's hard to say other than, nobody should have been on that roof.
And a blessing to talk to you 2 years later. Thank God for it all. A couple more quick things. We got to respect your time. Did you see the video, or the picture, I should say, of Mitch McConnell this weekend? And what do you think of his outlook? What are you hearing?
Well, I don't hear much. I was, never a huge fan, but he's one of the people. He should be voting for John Thune because, John Thune was loyal to him, whether you like John Thune or not. John Thune was very loyal to Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell's like a no vote on Save America Act, which is, basically, you think about it, it's voter ID. It's proof of citizenship, and it's no mail-in ballots except for the military, disabled, sick, or if you're sick or traveling, which is pretty generous right there. But the mail-in ballots might be the most important of those three items. But he's against that. Now, how can anybody be against that and against some other things? So it's too bad. But, I hope he's going to be fine. I don't know if he's fine, but I certainly hope he's going to be fine.
All right. We're going to pick it up on the other side. What do you think? Let me know. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Great big speech from POTUS on Thursday night at 9 p.m. I think it is going to be about this electioneering stuff. Have you seen some of these pictures of what 60, 71-year-old men used to look like? They just, by today's, they look like they're 91. All right. It's a great big step forward, although we do baby ourselves a little bit. Be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right. 800-848-9222. I'm holding the phone on which I spoke. I'm going to keep this phone. When you turn in your phone, when you go to buy a new phone, they always want your old phone back. I always feel funny about that. Giving somebody my phone is like giving somebody a chunk of your brain. Everything is in there. Everything. thoughts, dreams, weirdness, who the hell knows what. Then they say they delete it. They delete everything. I'm sure they delete everything. But this phone that I'm holding, the president's voice has gone through this voice speaker. And I think that makes it, for me, a bit of an antique. Something I want to hold on to. Something I want to keep, maybe not. Depends what kind of rebate I get from the Apple Store. Yes, Lewis at 800-848-9222. How are you?
Yes, Greg. Recently, my uncle passed away in Texas, and I had a chance to travel and stop at the rest areas along the way and preach the gospel, God and country message. And I made YouTube channel on it. I'd love to share it with you.
Well, before you do that, you drove from where to where? He died in Texas?
Drove from Fort McCoy I live near Ocala. From Ocala, Florida, all the way to Austin, Texas.
All right, and you would pull up at those stops, and what would you do? How would you go about it? What would you do?
I would display my sign that says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord," or something like that. And then I would have a veteran's sign that says, "I'm a veteran," a veteran. And I would go with a PA system, and I would say, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. We need to come back to Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach."
All right, hold on a second. Now, hold on. Now, what kind of you did it over the PA? You did it over a loudspeaker?
I got a brand new car that says CIA, Christ in America.
CIA. All right, beautiful. Now you put it on the roof of the car and you shouting this stuff?
I got like a
megaphone. I know not everybody wants to hear a megaphone, even if it's a beautiful message. Then again, you got to get the word out somehow. I would imagine some people were very nice, some people ignored you, and some people gave you a hard time. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Mississippi on the way home, they say you can't do that here. So we handed a whole bunch of gospel books, and then me and my wife, we left right away. They stopped me from preaching the gospel at the first rest area on Mississippi going south.
Going south? You were going east to west or west to east?
We were going, I'm sorry, east to west.
That's what I thought. All right. Well, look, you got to cut some people some slack. You know what I mean? They don't know what's going on. But I admire it to a point. You know what I mean? I want it to be more about... You know what I mean? This isn't an ego trip. This is a trip for God, right? Right? All right. Thank you, Lewis. Stay in touch.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Okay, where do things stand in this Iran war? I guess it's back on. The blockade is back in effect. We're bombing Iran once again. Let's see, what else? This whole thing with the toll and the Guardian of the Middle East, I think it was potentially a bargaining gambit. That's what you do sometimes. You know, Mexico, from what I understand, has not and will not pay for the wall between us and them, right? There is no wall. I mean, there is a wall, but we paid for it. They didn't. They may have kicked in something in terms of the tariffs and the border fees, possibly. We could officially say it, but not in any meaningful, appreciable way. And some people will say, you see, President Trump failed. No, you don't understand. It was the way of managing the debate and starting the debate and igniting momentum. So, first we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for that wall. And all of a sudden, everybody is just debating is Mexico going to pay for it? They'll never pay for it. No, but you'll notice what happened. There's an it there. We've already gotten past, should there be a wall? Will there be a wall? There will be a wall. Now the question is, who's going to pay for it, right? So the Strait of Hormuz, I think, is possibly in the same kind of realm, right? These are the kinds of things that happen in negotiations. And we're still talking to Iran, even though we are bombing the hell out of them. We are talking to them. I wish I could have asked him about, who remembers Ahmadinejad? Ahmadinejad was the Iranian... Well, we thought he was a nutjob at the time, and he was president of Iran, who came over here and and gave a big speech to Columbia University where they welcomed him. Although they weren't as crazy then as they are now. And they were not as crazy then as they are now. I mean, even the students, like there wasn't like a welcome wagon for him when he showed up. But that got us kind of on the way, didn't it? On the way. So I feel like the sovereignty, the tariffs on stuff coming in and out. Well, do me a favor. It may be fake news, right? But they do have a global presence. Hit me with this, and some of those guys are good guys. Let's get the lay of the land from beginning to top, from top to bottom, beginning to top. Cut 11, please. ABC News with David Muir. Cut 11.
Breaking at this hour, the U.S. launching new strikes on Iran. And for the first time, the U.S. using sea drones in these combat operations, targeting an Iranian submarine and ship maintenance facility. President Trump reinstating his blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, the price of oil skyrocketing already. And the president now says the U.S. will now charge ships going into the strait. Mary Bruce at the White House.
The U.S. launching a new round of strikes on Iran. The two countries trading attacks for days. The war clearly back on.
They're not pushing us around. We're pushing them around.
President Trump now reinstating the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports as both sides battle for control of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran announcing it's closed, but Trump declaring the U.S. will soon become, quote, the guardian of the Hormuz Strait and charge a 20% fee on all cargo that goes through it.
We're going to guard it. We're going to get paid for guarding it. A lot of money.
Before Trump launched this war, ships were able to pass freely through the strait without needing protection. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has previously dismissed any talk of fees.
No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway.
If Trump's fee goes into effect, a massive oil tanker transporting 2 million barrels could soon have to pay the U.S. upwards of $32 million. That could cause oil and gas prices to spike even further. They're already on the rise. Gas now at $3.82 a gallon. Analysts say it could top $4 in a week.
And David, you heard the president. He's reimposing that blockade on Iranian ports and wants to charge this 20% fee. Oil prices spiking based on that news, up more than 9%.
Well, okay, up more than 9%. That's what happens. They'll go up, they'll come down. Oh my gosh, over $4. Over $4. I remember paying $5.50 under Joe Biden 4 years ago. That took a bigger bite, didn't it, back then? But somehow not a big deal. Just not a big deal. 4 years ago, $5.50, a record. So just about everything, right? It's always a negative slant, yet somehow. And you know why? Because the American people see right through this crap. What worries me about the midterms, are we going to be there? Are you guys going to show up? Are you giving money? Are you looking at these swing districts? You got to find out what they are. You got to support candidates who are not insane. I think that includes Tom Kean Jr., right? Was he given a clean bill of health? It does. He's not crazy. He was just sad and down in the dumps. And I don't mean to make light of depression, but I do think, you can make a big deal out of depression, or you can make fun of it and minimize it. And you can go out for a jog and smell the roses. I was feeling down in the dumps, and Dr. Samadi, great doctor, he told me to try exercise, and prayer. And look, this guy can prescribe you anything, and I'm sure he has in the past, But it was such a beautiful recommendation. Exercise. Be good to yourself first. And sometimes we don't do that, especially mentally. Especially mentally. We beat ourselves up so bad. I wonder what it's like being a Supreme Court justice right now. It's probably not as bad as it was under Joe Biden for the conservatives, because they wanted them dead. Right now, if there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court, guess who fills it? President Trump. That would mean he would have had 4 nominees. Now, granted, Amy Coney Barrett has been a disaster, right? Seduced by the swamp, and maybe scared by the swamp. Now, she told a story at a public forum. This is Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the one who gave Trump a really nasty look at that State of the Union. the one who defied him on the the birthright citizenship and the cargo and the embargo and the tariff and all that stuff. Now, why did she do that? Did she do that because of the merits? Did she do that because all of her friends tell her that Donald Trump is a monster? Did she do it because she's scared? And it very well could be that she's scared. There's a reason why we have federal laws that say you can't harass Supreme Court justices where they live. You can't do that to judges and the rest. You can't. But they let it happen. Listen to her tell this it's a pretty intense story, actually. Amy Coney Barrett. You know, she has a whole bunch of kids, some of them adopted. I find her impressive. Also disappointing. I think she caved. Cut 16, please. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Personally, they have required me to, my children, to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago, around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it, and I didn't know how to respond because maybe I lack imagination, but I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one. It's also been reported in the news that roughly 6 weeks ago, I was the victim of a swatting incident. At that point, one of my teenage sons, opened the door to go out with friends and saw in our street, it was full of police cars, who had responded to a false report of gunshots and raised voices in my home. I was very, very grateful that I had Supreme Court police outside my home because they were able to stop and meet with and explain to the county police that it had been a false alarm, and so the police did not actually attempt to enter our home. Many of us, me included, have received threatening anonymous deliveries designed to intimidate and harass us. They are often sent in the name of Judge Salas's son, who I think, as you mentioned in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is deceased because he was killed by a disgruntled lawyer who showed up at Judge Salas's home intending to kill her, but her son, 20 years old at the time, opened the door and took the bullet instead. Her husband, standing behind, was seriously injured. So I think the message on these deliveries being sent in his name is clear. As Justice Kagan said, federal judges across the country, throughout the judiciary, including the Supreme Court, continue to do their jobs without fear or favor, but the threat level is really high.
You know, Judge Salas, that happened actually in New Jersey. I remember that well. It was 2018, 2019, maybe 2020. But a guy who was very, very upset with that judge, who was a crazy lawyer who was always filing frivolous lawsuits, went to her house and killed her son, and didn't get to her. So there's a lot of concern about security. Now, one thing about that guy, he had his own crazy warped mind, and he had business in front of that judge, and he held her responsible. So a lot of the stuff about security for judges and judicial is a thinly veiled attempt to make MAGA look bad, right? They pretend that MAGA, is out to get them. The whole thing about MAGA is it's beautiful, it's pure, it makes sense. We're not full of hate. We don't tolerate hatred. That's not who we are. And in a weird way, we're kind of apolitical. I'm not the most political person in the world. I'm not going to go arm in arm with you about the Pacific Trans Trade Agreement. I don't, this stuff matters, but we can have these debates. I don't think we debate whether or not children should be sexualized or whether or not we have a border. All right. And I think a debate about a war is a good thing as well. Should they go on forever and we lose, or should they be brief and lethal and successful? That's a worthy debate to have. So I think the basics, we're fighting for the basics and American greatness. So, hey, I'm looking at a picture of Viktor Yushchenko. Now, who the hell is that? Viktor Yushchenko was the president of Ukraine, and it looks like Putin didn't like him and had him poisoned, wanted him dead. right? He was a very handsome man. Very handsome, tall, just kind of, I don't know. He was a good-looking guy. And then he got a whiff of the poison, and his face blew up, little pock marks and bubbles all over it, weird bubbles and growths coming off of his face. Now, this is 15 years ago. Yushchenko almost died. Putin has poisoned scores of people he didn't like and killed them. Agents who defected, Navalny in prison. This is kind of like how they do business over there. And remember, and I'm going to find it in the commercial break, when Lindsey Graham stood up and said, it's time to kill Putin. Someone's got to take him out. And it was very controversial, totally forgotten now. Totally forgotten. He's there for 16 hours on the ground, comes back to America, and drops dead. Over the past 15 years, they've gotten better with the poison. They've gotten a lot better with the poison. And especially if they're going to poison an American. They want it to be a little bit of a mystery. With Yushchenko, they wanted everybody to know, hey, Putin did this, and look at what's going to happen to you. You're either going to die or be horribly disfigured. They have other potions and lotions that could definitely make you have a heart attack 2 days later. I mean, what else are they working on at the CIA and the KGB if they aren't working on things like that? And we also have it that the authorities wouldn't want us to know that because they wouldn't want anybody clamoring for war or be forced into a war. Lyndon Johnson did that in the JFK. Lyndon Johnson tried to shut down and try to stack the Warren Commission because there was evidence pointing to Russia and Cuba. And he didn't want it going that way. He didn't want it going in a lot of different ways. Maybe in a way that pointed right back at him. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. If you have any theories on why these people look so much younger today, in addition to the smoking and the no smoking and the creams, is there something in the water? Fluoride in the water? They started doing that, and they don't do that in the UK. You can kind of tell when you're over there. Be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All righty. Getting some messages here. Mixed bag. Some people say, stop talking about Lindsey Graham. He died of a heart attack. Well, how do you know? How the hell do you know? Did you? Before you told me that, are you familiar with Viktor Poroshenko? Do you know anything about him? Alexei Navalny, you know anything about him? Did you know that Lindsey Graham came out in early 2022 and publicly demanded the assassination of Vladimir Putin? If you knew all those things and you still want me to shut up, I will listen. But most of the people who are complaining about this, I'm noticing, don't know about all of those things that I just mentioned. And how, like, poisoning over there is like shooting somebody here, right? It's not that rare. It's a thing that they do over there. Just the way it is. Weird. Another reason to not leave home, man. I have no interest in going overseas anymore. Zero. Let's see here. Oh, Chris, our construction worker, who, by the way, Chris, I thought about you when that building started bending on 42nd Street, and it looked like it was installed improperly, and they may have to take the whole damn thing down because it's going to fall down otherwise. And you know what I thought about? The construction workers on weed. Do you think that could have had something to do with it?
No, I think greed had a lot to do with it. They cut corners on the structural work.
Okay, well, if you cut corners and you throw in construction workers who are high, I mean, you got a problem, right? And it could be. You can't rule it out.
Well, they were probably illegal construction workers because they were standing there looking at it when the buildings collapsed. I mean, that's union guys. You would have never seen that.
All right, but you told me, and I've observed this myself, that drinking beer used to be a thing, and now it's smoking dope, which is weirdly kind of half legalized. You still see that on the site?
Every day.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. See, every day, these buildings are going to come out crooked, and they're going to start falling down. Hey, you got to tell your friends there, just say no, and I want you to just say no. You're not still smoking that stuff, not on the job, are you?
No, Oh, Greg, I wanted to talk about what you were talking about with Trump, the way he's handled before. And
Well, I want you to not pledge to me you're not going to smoke any weed on the site.
Never.
All right. Yeah, very convincing. All right, what do you want to talk about?
All right, so I wanted to talk about, I actually get my haircuts in Little Palestine, which is the one in Jersey, which is in Patterson, and it's, so I go into like a really heavily Palestinian barbershop, right, and they watch like Al Jazeera and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I don't judge, I go there to get my haircuts. Anyway, my barber is a Turkish kid, and he was telling me the other day that they were saying, he probably got it all off of one of those stations that they watch, you know, Al Jazeera or whatever, but anyway, but he said that they keep the president's poop and they bring it back with them on the plane. I thought it was funny, so I figured, you know, I'd bring that up because of the conversation you had with the other caller earlier.
Wait. Whose fecal material do they keep? President Erdogan's?
They keep it because it has his DNA. Trump.
Well, I mean, wait a second. Who wants Turkey? Well, you're talking about President Trump's? They would save that?
Yes,
they wouldn't. I mean, wait a second now. I mean, you can find his DNA from a glass of water. Why would you want to look at that stuff? What possible value would that have?
I'm trying to tell you, this is what's circulating in that community.
In the barbershop, for crying out loud. I've heard all kinds of crazy things at the barbershop. In my barbershop, they got Playboy magazines and Hustler. Still. I'm like, where do you find these things? They still make them? Granted, yeah, a lot of them are kind of old. So I don't know. I mean, how the hell would he know that? I hope it's not true. It's now, having said that, you can evaluate. Let's call it stool. All right, let's call it stool. And what would they know? What would they know? They would find out what he ate, right? You know, what his fiber's like. You'll notice that in America, you know, very seldom do they want a stool sample, right? You know, blood test, that kind of thing. Stool, not really, not so much. All right. Well, keep me informed, not informed. Keep me amused and slightly grossed out by what you hear in that barbershop. Why do you go all the way over there? Is it convenient to you?
Yeah, it's convenient, and the barber he cuts hair pretty good, even though they got like Hamas TV on the TV.
Yeah, well, watch out. I don't want you to get your head cut off in there. I'm serious. I once had that thought. I was getting my hair cut in Iraq. I was getting it cut in this Baghdad hotel, and the guy did a great job. He was a shave and a haircut, and but I started getting a funny feeling. I just got a funny feeling. And I, you know, not to be prejudiced, but they were cutting off Americans' heads over there left and right. I'm sure that's not going to happen in Patterson, New Jersey. Then again, if they support Hamas, hey, wait a second, man. Do they? Are you sure? Do you know what the Hamas logo looks like?
Of course, yes. They got like a green beret.
Well, you don't want to go to that barbershop anymore, all right? Find some other place to go to. Go to my guy. Elegant Barber on the Upper East Side. It's very fancy. You're going to have to dress up when you go. All right. Thank you, pal. All the best.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?